Good morning, APers. It's 11:50 Friday, time for us to start our class. All right, let's get to a do now for today. So if you haven't done so, go in the back and grab a do now slip. So make sure you get a do now slip in the back. And why don't you take about 2 to 3 minutes? You can use your notes if you want to. Grab a slip in the back and you may answer this question. What were the biggest effects of the Columbian Exchange? And our substitute teacher, thanks so much for being here today. If you could pause this right now, that would be great. All right, now that we got that done, even though I'm in Peru, I feel like doing this. Let me call on a few people. Why don't we take for our first answer, why don't we go with Nick? Nick, what do you got there, Nick, for your answer? Oh, and substitute teacher, you can pause it while he answers. Okay, I'm sure that was a great answer from Nick. Why don't we go with, who should I pick on here? I'd you lead right up front there. Why don't you go ahead and read your answer? Again, pause it, please, substitute teacher, if you haven't already. And why don't I take one of the guys in the back corner? Why don't we go with, yeah, Kevin. Why don't you give your answer there, Kevin? All right, so we're talking about the Columbian Exchange, and let's look at what we're going to do today. So we're going to have the assessments are going to be passed out today, and today we're going to work on our LEQ, our long essay question. So right now, if our awesome substitute teacher could take this packet right here and pass it out. This right here is your LEQ and your SAQ for our packet on the Columbian Exchange. So you can pause it right now while these get passed out. All right, so let's take a look at what we are doing. Our LEQ question for today is we are going to compare demographic and environmental effects of the Columbian Exchange on the Americas with the Columbian Exchange's demographic and environmental effects on one of the following regions between 1492 and 1750. Which is the early modern era. So we're going to pick the Americas, but then you have to pick Africa or Europe. You definitely could pick Africa, but I'm going to recommend you go for Europe for this one. But let's fill out part of this and see how we do. So how do we get this done? Have your packets out already. And since we're doing an LEQ, it's been a little while in a comparison, I decided to put some topics in there for you in the graphic organizer. Now these topics will go away soon. You're going to have to make up your own pretty soon when we do our LEQs. But here are some topics for responses. I put population changes, migration of people, new crops, new animals. And you can add more to that if you want. But then if you go and flip the synthesis here, and this one's always been a little bit of a struggle for us. For synthesis, you need to put demographic or environmental effect from another exchange in history. So not the Columbian Exchange. Was there another exchange that went on where things happened, where there was trade goods going back and forth, where two different cultures met and there was an exchange that affected someone? You could put one group, one area that was affected by another exchange in the world. I'm not going to give you that one because this is like an extra 5 points. It's kind of like a 4.0 option. So let's look first at our population changes. Now, for this, I'm going to go back and look at the reading we had for AP Worldopedia 4.1. Well, new foods and crops. Geez, look at all this right here. Look at that. Tons of examples there. You could put a foods and crops right there. But I'm not going to give you that one right away. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look actually at on your, where is it again? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? There it is. All right, what I'm going to look on here is your graphic organizer where it says population changes. And this is where I think I might put down disease. Now, disease could be its own topic, but disease doesn't affect Europe or Africa that much. So I'm going to put population changes because then I can put disease and talk about the horrible things that happen to the people in the Americas. But the population changes for Europe were actually kind of positive with the new foods they got. And also for Africa to an extent. Amazingly, Africa's population still went up during this time, even with the slave trade going on. which meant the new foods that were being brought to Africa did help the African people. But let's take a look at this. And I wouldn't use slavery as a population change for this one, because that's not really the Columbian exchange. The Columbian exchange is more food products and diseases going back and forth. So we'll stick to that. Food, diseases, farm animals, those are the things we'll be looking at. So for population changes, what I noticed on my AP Wikipedia reading, I kind of got right into this area where it talked about a lot of the diseases that were going on with Native Americans not having immunities to these plagues and diseases that we've been talking about in the Afro-Eurasian trade network for hundreds of years. In American Indians, or you often see them put as Amerindians, got these at one time. So what I'm going to put down on my graphic organizer to start is this. So I'm going to start off, and you can actually copy this down if you want. If you need to, I can bigulate that for you guys there. What do you think? Should I bigulate it? Oh, okay, fine. Now you can see it a little better. And I'll put something like this. Now, you'll need more details than this in the box, but let's just do this for a start. I'm going to put diseases like smallpox killed up to 60 to 90% of the native population. The Aztecs, for example, 1,000 a day were dying when the Spanish came to Mesoamerica from diseases. And there's other evidence on there you got from that video you watched on the Columbian exchange. There's several videos in your packet. And you can look at part 1 of your packet and find more evidence. But here, disease is a big one for population change. In fact, I might even put down something like disease caused population to go down. And that might be part of my topic sentence for this paragraph, something like one difference between population change in the Americas and Europe was that in the Americas, disease caused the population to go down, while Europe, population went up with new foods, or something like that. The population went up. And let me find an example for that right now. So when I look at AP Wikipedia, and it's not that far, I just go right here, and I got something pretty close. It says the Columbian exchange also diffused new crops from the Americas to locations throughout the world. Potatoes, for example, were transplanted to places like Europe, Russia, and China. Because they could produce heavier yields than cereal grains and be cultivated in higher altitudes, potatoes led to an increased surplus of food. About 25% of the population growth in Afro-Eurasia between 1700 and 1900 can be attributed to the cultivation of potatoes. So what I'll do is I'll go up here and I'll put, because of crops like potatoes from the Americas, there was a surplus, that's a good history word, surplus of food, and population went up by 25%. Wait, 25% for who again? Who to say there again? Oh, Afro-Eurasia. That includes Europe, so I can put that for Afro-Eurasia. I need a space there. And what's awesome about this is it says Afro-Eurasia, so I can also just do this. And that can count for both. Let me bigulate those in case you're having trouble seeing them. And there we go. So now I have a number of good details here to start off with. Not quite enough to make this into a paragraph, but I got a great start here. So you're going to want probably about, let's see how many. I would say probably like 3 examples in each box before you want to turn this into a paragraph. And this will become a body paragraph. Topic sentence for this body paragraph would be something like, there were many population changes that happened with the Columbian exchange for Americas and Africa, or Americas and Europe. Remember, you got to pick the Americas, then you can choose Africa or Europe. And then I'll get into my details, like in the Americas, disease caused population to go down, give my details. And then in Europe, disease caused the population, population went up, maybe because of new foods. And that can be a body paragraph beginning right there. All right, peers, why don't we do this? Why doesn't everyone just take out a sheet of paper right now? So pause it, please. Okay, so what I want you to do is put your name on this piece of paper and write LEQ Columbian Exchange. So get your name on it. So, and then something like that. Then leave enough space for you to write your introduction. And you can, right now, I can have our substitute teacher pause this, and here's an example in a second, and here's an example of our first body paragraph, how to begin it with a topic sentence. In the Columbian Exchange, there were many differences in how the population was affected. In the Americas, population went down drastically because of disease, while in Europe, the population increased. And then give you details about the Americas, and then give your details about Europe. So if our substitute could just pause this right now, you can actually copy this if you want to use this for your first body paragraph. Okay, now that you got that part copied down, you got your graphic organizer started, why don't you do this? Why don't you take, right now, if I could have 5 to 6 minutes, you may work on your own and fill this graphic organizer out as much as you can. And if our great substitute teacher here could just push pause. All right, now that you've had time to fill this out on your own, let's get together in groups of 3, and you may compare and share and fill out as much of this graphic organizer as you can. Go ahead and you may do that now. All right, now that you've had about 4 or 5 minutes to compare and share your graphic organizer, let's look at your piece of paper again, which is where you're writing this, and let's look at our introduction. So, get your first body paragraph started. Now let's get our introduction. In your introduction, your step 1 is to basically restate the prompt. And we can keep this very simple. Something like, there were many demographic and environmental effects of the Columbian Exchange on blank and blank. Pick the 2 areas that you are choosing. And then, some of these effects were, and now you go with the rule of 3. All you have to do is list your 3 topics that you are going to use for this comparison essay. And then for your body paragraphs, state your topic, state how it affected basically both areas you're talking about, and then provide evidence for it. And you will need 3 body paragraphs for this. Let's look at our calendar here real quick and what we are looking at. As you guys have Christmas break coming up, which is going to be awesome, although you are going to have some work. Here is what we are looking at. So you need to have the LEQ, have a rough draft of this completely written over Christmas break. So write your LEQ. And also your packet 4.1 part 2, make sure that is completely done before you come back for Christmas break. And one more thing we're going to look at. Okay, the rest of your packet for 4.1 part 2, when you do it, is going to be about religions, and a lot of ways religions spread and mixed. So syncretism is going to be a big word in these, how religions are blending and mixing. So what you will need to do after you read 4.1 part 2 is, I don't want you to finish the SAQ, but I want your graphic organizer to be done. So after Christmas break, we can compare this and work on it when we get back. So if you look at this, the question is, the increase in interactions between newly connected hemispheres and intensifications of connections within hemispheres expanded the spread and reform of existing religions and created syncretic belief systems and practice. A. Identify and explain one example of syncretism in the early modern era. B. Identify and explain another example of syncretism in religion in the early modern era. And C. Identify and explain one way religion reformed or changed. So a change or reform that happened. So I put 3 spots for you. You only need to fill out 2, but you can fill out 3 if you want for syncretism. And I put 2 spots for changes you can put, and just have this thing filled out. So to review, what you got to do here is LEQ, have that completely written, a rough draft. Finish 4.1 part 2, and have the SAQ, graphic organizer, finished, and that is going to be your homework over Christmas break. Hope you guys have a great Christmas, have a great break. Miss you guys. I'm really lucky to be with my family in Peru and celebrating Christmas and New Year's. My wife hasn't seen her family in 11 years, so I'm sure she's enjoying it right now. Have a great break, and we will see you guys afterwards. Keep being the awesome, amazing students that you always are. Really proud of you guys. All right. Have a great Christmas.